focus on hitting your goals in every area of your business. Remember, the universe rewards the bold. A leader has to take the risks.
Okay, let's rock and roll.
All right, let's rock and roll, man. I love it.
Did you see the film?
What's that?
Did you watch the film?
I did. I watched most of the film. I tried to get through the whole thing, and but it was absolutely incredible, man. You should be so proud of yourself.
I am. Thank you.
David Fishof, right? I mean, is it
Fishof? Yeah.
Fishof. Okay, I just want to make sure I got the name right. But this is really cool for you to come on Wealth on the Beach podcast. We are, I've interviewed over 150 people, and this is like, I think I was looking forward to this one more than so many others. I mean, you have so many great names that you that you've been surrounded by all these years. I mean, you know, you're whether producing a tour, assembling an all-star band with Ringo Starr, you're hanging out with Roger Daltrey, the Monkees, Joe Walsh. I mean, who that'd be pretty cool. Jack Bruce, Peter Frampton. You got a passion for building, building bands and building events. One of the most innovative producers in the world. But then this is what's cool about David that I want y'all to know, is he created, this is one of his all-time dreams, is to create a rock and roll fantasy camp. And we're going to be talking about that today, because that is like really, really cool to know. So David, how did you come up with this rock and roll fantasy camp, man?
So, I toured for many years with Ringo, and I toured for many of my bands, with the Monkees or my British Rock Symphony. I was always on the road. But one event happened when I was on my first tour with Ringo and the All-Star Band. After the fourth show, people couldn't believe you'd put a tour like that together. How are you going to get all these A-listers to go on tour? And, it's one thing if you do a one-nighter for Live Aid and do a charity benefit, but to put them on the road together, all those egos, how's it going to work? And so I got nervous, as well as everybody kept scaring me. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And after the fourth show, I was sitting at the Garden State Arts Center in the backstage area, and Nils Lofgren walks by and he says, "Fishof, I'm out of here. I can't do this tour." And I said, "Oh no, I mortgaged my house to put up the deposit." And then all of a sudden, Clarence Cummins, a minute later, he comes to my right. He says, "Fishof, I'm out of here. I'm quitting too. It's not going to work." And I said, "Well, go find Ringo. It's his band." And they couldn't find him anywhere. And then the security guard said, "You better go down there having a fight. Joe Walsh and Levon Helm. Joe's got a knife and blood, and Levon Helm's got a broken glass bottle and blood. And you better go in there and break this fight up." So I went in there in the dressing room, and I start seeing these two guys going at each other. And I start yelling, "Are you guys a bunch of babies?" I just freaked out. And I try to get in the middle there and try to break it up. And all of a sudden, Levon takes the glass bottle and throws it over Joe's head, and more blood comes out. And then they both turned around and they stuck their tongues out at me. They had gotten fake blood. They got a glass bottle made out of sugar, and they just pulled such a stunt. And it's in the movie, and you see it in the movie, and it's really happened in the Ringo dressing room. So when I came back out of that, I said to myself, these guys have so much fun. How cool would it be to give people the experience to tour and to be on the road with a bunch of great rock stars who be creative? And that's when I got the idea of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. Now, it's been 25 years later, and it's been amazing. And now 26 years, really, to see how much the rock stars love rock camp as much as the guests who come.
So it really was. So after all said and done, it wasn't ego. They're playing a joke on you, obviously, but you found a way to kind of control these egos throughout all these years to put these people together in a room. And you probably found out. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably found out that successful people actually like to learn from other successful people.
Listen, Tony Robbins said it. Dick Clark told me years ago. He said, David, to be successful, you got to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And Tony Robbins said, you want to do something, immerse yourself in it. Immerse yourself in it. So Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, you want to be a musician, you want to do it as fun, you want to be a vocalist. I'm not telling you to go up there and be a rock star. I don't promise that. But if you want to do that, immerse yourself. Go to a camp for 4 days and get that experience and surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. So I'm a big believer of that.
And so I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into your past, because I want our audience to get to know you as a person.
Sure.
Where were you born, and what was your childhood like growing up?
So I was basically raised in Hackensack, New Jersey. My dad was a cantor. My mom was a school teacher. My dad was a survivor of the Holocaust. He survived Auschwitz and Buchenwald. He lived quite an interesting life during the war. He made false passports. He was living as a non-Jew. And it's documented in a book called The Yellow Star. And then he gets caught in giving a passport on the streets in Hungary. They ship him off to Auschwitz, and he meets 5 of his dear friends that came from the city. They were from this town called Bratislava. And they go through the camps together. And the book, The Yellow Star, basically tells the story of these 5 guys together. So I learned growing up everyday survival. My dad talked about it. A lot of Holocaust survivors didn't talk to the kids about it. My dad spoke about it every day. I came home from school every day, and there was a half a piece of bread in the refrigerator, half a piece of toast. And I once asked my dad, what's this half a piece of bread for? And my dad said, I ate 1.5 pieces of bread every breakfast, but I know my next meal was. So I saved that as my next meal. And, being a survivor's kid, you learn a lot of good, and you learn a lot of bad, but you really learn to survive. And so luckily I had my dad. He lived on a quarter of a kidney. He got beaten so badly by the Nazis, but he taught me a lot. He lived to 82, so that was my childhood. It was a happy childhood. My dad never got aggravated. My mom, they were in love for 52 years. My dad could say, there's nothing you could do to aggravate me because I saw it all. So I had a good childhood, and really supportive. But in the end, as you see in the movie, I wanted to be a musician. My brother was a drummer. He got all the girls. And as many of these rock stars will tell you, from Bret Michaels said at a rock camp, you want to get the girls, you got to learn to play guitar. And so many rockers have told me that, So I wanted to be in the band, but I wasn't good enough. So my dad said to me.
What were you like though as a kid? I mean, you had a pretty good childhood. You grew up.
I was a go-getter.
Okay. Were you middle class, higher class, lower class?
Oh no, we were definitely middle class. Definitely lower middle class. But okay. I was selling candies. I was selling the cards. On the back of the comic books, they had those, selling Christmas cards, and I was selling cards. I was selling stationery. I was selling raffle tickets. I was always selling. I made a newspaper when I was in, I think, first grade, where I used to get the Sunday newspaper, and I would get the Sunday newspaper, and I'd write the headlines of myself by hand, and on like 7 pieces of paper. Remember, in between we had we didn't have photos. We had like that paper, that copy paper, that you would write and it would appear, and I'd sell it in my building, my apartment building. So yeah, I was always selling. I was always being entrepreneurial. I have a teenage son now. He's selling baseball cards. I love it. He's waiting for sneakers to come up to buy the best sneakers that he can go resell 5 minutes later. I think it's great for kids to be doing that. It gives them the entrepreneurship to want to do something. Very hard in today's society because you're competing with TikTok, you're competing with all these games, Fortnite, everything like that. And the problem is parents give their kids everything, so there's no motivation for them. But I think to stimulate them, I love seeing my kids, get jobs as teenagers, running youth groups, and I think it's really important.
So now, were your parents musicians or anything? I mean, did you like
Dad was a
what was that?
cantor.
Where'd that spark come from
Okay,
though? Like
so my dad was a cantor. So he was a,
besides the girls,
right. No,
how
no,
did it start?
my dad was a cantor, so he's around music. It was my brother Joey. He loved the Beach Boys. He saw Ringo play drums on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he swore he's going to become a drummer. Um, my brother went to Woodstock. Yeah, it was really my brother because he was really around. Jack Bruce. I remember picking up Ginger Baker for the airport, and I said, Ginger, two things I heard in my house: God and Ginger Baker. My father talked about God, and my brother talked about Ginger Baker. So definitely my brother. The influence. I wasn't even into the musicians at all. I was a sports guy, and that's why I became a sports agent first.
Okay, so how did that happen? Where did that
So
how
I,
did
I
that
was writing.
transpire?
I was booking acts in the Catskill Mountains, and if you see the movie Dirty Dancing, it's all true. I was booking, bands up in the Catskills, and then from there, I still became I was writing for a newspaper. I interviewed a couple of ball players. I met some players, and I started booking them. Can I book you on appearances? And back then, when I started, there weren't a lot of agents, and so most of these players didn't have agents. So I said, I'll represent you. I'll negotiate your contracts. And there were a bunch of agents there, but they weren't good. And once I started doing good for one, I picked up another one and another client. And, they talk in the locker room. So, eventually I had 3 of the Angels. I had 8 of the New York Giants. And I started building up a nice practice. And I loved it. I loved working with the guys and really helping them get their contracts, get their life together, and I wasn't investing their money, but I would tell them, hey, put away, it's going to end. It's going to end. Buy an annuity, buy something that you're going to see income later on. Don't risk your money. And, it's a short period that you have 4.5 years as an NFL player, bank it. And today I'm close with a lot of them because they listen to me and they get, I had one client call me up about 10 years ago and said, hey, David, I got a check in the mail for $25,000. What's it for? I said, you're going to get a check for the next 30 years every month because you set an annuity. You totally forgot about it. So I was really, to me, that was really important. But it got boring. Why did it get boring? It got boring because it was about show me the money. And I was sharing office space with some great music managers, and I wanted to be creative. And it's hard when you represent ball players, honestly, you have to negotiate their contract, but creativity, you can't do much because the team owns them. So I wanted to own my own projects. I wanted to be like the team owner. And I was able to get that opportunity when I put together the Monkees. I put together Happy Together tours and Dirty Dancing and Ringo. It was just more fun for me. So I eventually, moved more into the music business.
So how does that happen? I mean, you're in, because I think what's happening right now is people are watching this or they're listening to this right now, and they are thinking, okay, so you got this successful business where you're a sports agent, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you're like, that's boring. I'm going to go into the music business. So what was there somebody that you knew that got you in? Did you have a connection? Did you just all of a sudden say, okay, today I'm going to,
No,
like
I would,
how did it, transpire?
okay. So I'll give you the philosophy. Amway. I don't know if you remember Amway growing up. So I was in the Amway business. Someone put me in the Amway business 20 years old. And again, the philosophy of Amway was you have a main business and go out and sell whatever you do. You're a school teacher, you're a lawyer. Start selling these Amway products. And eventually you'll get to the point where your Amway sales will be bigger than your school teacher and your lawyer salary, and you'll be independent. So, and that's what Amway, they really teach you. I took that philosophy of Amway and I used it on my own business. So I stayed in the sports business, but simultaneously, as I was doing the sports business, I started experimenting in music. So I did a Happy Together tour, which is still, with the Turtles and the Grassroots, the package tours, because I learned that in the Catskills, how to package artists, and no one was doing that. So I came up with this idea in '84 when I first met my first band. I got a call. A guy read an interview about me in the LA Times. I was negotiating Vince Ferragamo's contract. He says, you want to represent the association? So I took on the band. I went to see them and I took them on. Now, I had never done music before, but we have a word in Judaism called chutzpah. you know, I'm going to take a chance. Did I learn how to be a sports agent? No, there was no such thing back then. So I said to a player, I'm going to go and I said to Lupinello, let me go and negotiate your contract with George Steinbrenner. I'll do a better job than you can do. And I proved to him that I could. I went up against George and I was able to negotiate because, you know, no one should negotiate for themselves. So I went and I learned just by doing that. And once I was successful doing that, I picked up other clients and other clients. So yes, chutzpah, you take a chance and you go, you do it. And you know, always bearing in mind that you still have a client. You know, I was reading an article last night about a player agent who's suing his agent because the agent, you know, never returned calls. He had an offer for $70 million to play for a basketball team. The agent was trying to be cool, didn't turn down a $70 million guarantee. Now the guy's making $3 million. Look at Schroeder, even Schroeder of the Lakers. He had like a $70-80 million guarantee. And his agent turned it down. Now he's playing for the Celtics for $5 million. So, you know, so a lot of times these agents get in the way. You know, you hear about Scott Boras, and I mean, you hear about the $1 zillion contracts that he made, but you go look at all the deals that he turned down. Now, the reason he got those $1 zillion deals is because maybe he is having that fear factor. But there's somebody who took that punishment who didn't get that contract because the agent was too tough. So, you know, it's a fine balance you have to be, you know, to represent the player and then realize, you know, I always had a feeling of what's enough, how much is enough. And so it's taking a chance. No, I didn't throw out the sports business when I had the entertainment business. I was doing both simultaneously, but then the entertainment business just took precedence because it took a lot more work. I was making a lot more money than I was as a sports agent because I owned the merchandising, I owned ticket sales, sponsorship, you know, so it was fun. So eventually, once
you were getting creative as far as like packaging these deals together, and you were getting little cuts on all these different areas of the business. And so, is there something that we can learn from that? I mean, just the average little small business out there. I mean, should they be looking at creating multiple streams of income versus just working at a 9-to-5 job? I mean,
100%.
Could you talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah. First of all the restaurants today, you know, the Postmates and you know, if you own a restaurant, there's so much online business. You own a store, online is the place to go. So, you know, Barnes and Noble, I walked into their store last night, The Grove, in Los Angeles, and it's empty, you know. And then, but you know, I said to my daughter, I said, they're making their money. That's an advertisement for online, and online is everything today. So yes, you have to look for different multiples. You know, last year I'm in the live music business. Nothing got hurt more than the live music business during COVID. So right away, I came up with this concept. I'm going to do live Zooms that you can talk to the rock stars. And I did Roger Daltrey, I had Styx the band, I had the Scorpions, I had Rudy Sarzo giving bass lessons, you name it. I did 160 masterclasses over Zoom. And, you know, it was amazing. Now, was it super profitable? Wasn't super profitable because I split it with the artist. But what I did do was I kept my brand going and the awareness. So you always have to be one step ahead and, you know, take your brand and, you know, and I wrote a book that 10 years ago called Rocking Your Business, Things You Can Learn from These Rock Stars. And let me tell you something, there's a lot you can learn because the brands like Kiss, the Beatles, the Stones, they're still making multi-million dollars. I mean, the Beatles coming out with this new film now. I walked into Barnes and Noble last night. The records are out. The merchandising is out. The Rolling Stones are out there touring, grossing over 10 million a night. I mean, how many businesses 50 years ago are still around today? And so you can learn a lot from rock stars.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So let's get into this band camp thing. All right. And I'm just thinking, like, people want to know, I mean, look, I never played in a band, you know, before. I mean, am I excluded from something like this?
You played it? You play an instrument?
I don't play an instrument necessarily, but maybe, you know, maybe karaokeing every once in a while.
Okay, so you sing. So
who is this for? Who is this camp
okay,
for?
First of all, I have to tell you that the movie, Rock Camp, the movie, really gives you an insight to rock and roll fantasy camp. And I'm really proud of the film.